Hi all, welcome to my video session on test automation from ground up. So in this session we are going to discuss what is test automation and also the decision points when you get a project on test automation. What do you have to think of to make this project a success? And we'll be covering up test automation frameworks, the modern test automation frameworks, and also what you should learn to be a great test automation professional. So let's start up with the session. What is test automation? So this is a question that we all should answer. Test automation, some people have different definitions, but it's basically test automation is not limited to QA. You can see we practice test automation in development also. We have the developers does unit testing, so it's a form of test automation. So it's not just a QA thing. We also automate the build process and also the deployment. So it's not just limited to QA. So then the question comes, what is test automation? So we have test cases. We perform manual testing as QA, and there are test cases which we have to repeat in each and every cycle where we release a particular functionality in the form of agile. When we complete a specific sprint which we have added some features for the product, we had to perform regression testing. And if there is a deployment in a particular environment, we had to do smoke testing, which ensures that the core components of the application under test has been deployed successfully. So these kind of test cases are repeatable. So we nowadays manual testers does not perform. Like for manual testing, we normally perform these test cases repeatedly. So what we do in automation, we have so many tools, Selenium being one, UFT being another tool which are recognized, Ranorex, we have Squish, we have Protractor, Nightwatch, immense lot of automation tools which helps to automate any application in multitude of platforms. So what we do is we have a set of repeatable test cases. We use an automated tool to automate these repeatable test cases, so there is no manual intervention, whereas manual testers are free to do more exploratory testing. So some people have this society looks more into Selenium, but it's nothing wrong. But do not think automation is just Selenium. There are a lot of tools, ample set of tools. If you want to automate desktop applications, we can use Vimium. If you want to automate mobility applications, we can use Appium. So if we want to automate web applications, we can use Selenium, we can use Protractor, we can use Nightwatch.js, so many tools. So not all test cases can be automated. We may have 150 test cases, but it does not mean we can automate 150 test cases. Some people think when we automate a project, we have to automate 100%. That doesn't work, guys. Not all test cases can be automated. Some test cases there are involving a batch processing mechanism where we have to create 100 users, thousands users, but we have to wait for the next day where the batch process completes. So these kind of test cases we cannot automate. There are certain test cases which, say for example, the order process system which runs on a DOS format. Sometimes there might be no tools to automate such platform. So these test cases cannot be automated. Then for a person who wants to start automation, how can we start test automation? Do not start test automation with Selenium IDE. It does not give you anything. It's just a paintbrush program, and also it is not used in the industry. So you won't gain anything when you automate through Selenium IDE. But unfortunately, Selenium IDE is no more supported after Firefox 52. You should know, when you start automation, you should be competent enough to know a programming language like C#, C++, Java, Python and Ruby, because you will be scripting using a programming language. You should have a good knowledge on object-oriented concepts like overloading, method overriding, inheritance, then importing packages. So all these things you should learn. Read about the tool you are studying. Know about the tool you are going to automate. Just don't download the tool and start automating. You should know what benefit it gives, what are the limitations it has, what platforms does it support, what browsers does it support. So then after that, learning the tool, you have to start automation. There are so many technical concepts involved. So to learn this, you have to go through a tutorial site, which can be Tutorial Point or Guru 99. Then after learning these sections, start automating some real scenarios, like the login process of Facebook, login process of LinkedIn, then sending an email through Gmail, login through Gmail. So these kind of things, you have to get into the, you have to dive into the mud to learn, to experience test automation. So when we get test automation, plan test automation. You cannot start just when you get a project. You have to plan it well, otherwise your automation project will end with disaster. Okay, so there are a lot of automation projects. People doesn't plan it well, it ends up with disaster. Can all projects automated? No. I have told y'all that we cannot automate certain functionality. Short-term projects are not ideal candidates for automation. Projects which ends in 3 months, 4 months, you cannot automate, because you may have to train your people for the particular automation tool and to work under the automation framework. And also, learning plus the time that you will be scripting, it might take time for you all. Sometimes it might consume 2 months, and if your project is left over with 2 months, then it's not good ideal candidate for automation. So when we automate, and we have to execute these automated test cases, so we will execute these automated test cases when we have a delivery, a particular release of the product. But if there is a less releases in the product, it's not a good ideal candidate for automation. So there should be multiple number of release cycles involved. Exploratory testing is one of testing. It uses creativity, innovativeness, and it might be not run repeating nature. So these test cases cannot be automated. Different technology platforms, sometimes the automation tool doesn't support. Even if we say for example DOS environment, command line might not support, so it's not a good candidate to automate. Skill issue is another big issue that we face. We might have people who are not novice in the programming language or in the automation tool or script under the automation framework, so we might have a learning curve involved there. So these are things that you have to consider. Criteria to go for test automation. Time. We should have long-term projects that expands more than 1 year. That gives us a good ROI. Number of release cycles. There should be multiple number of release cycles so that we can evolve, we can execute automation test cases multiple times. Skill. We should have the relevant skill to automate. We should get competent engineers, expertise people, automation architects to design the automation framework. Technology. We should have the necessary technology, third-party libraries to extend our automation functionality. Manual test case count. It's not good to automate if we have 10 or 20 manual test cases. We should have a considerable amount of manual test cases like 200 or 250, more than that. So these are things that we had to think before we automate. Procedure for automation. Look at the technical skills of the team, have some training, online training, video training. Let them go through some of the exercises, give some presentations, tell the experts to train them. Then look at the QA budget. Yes, if the client is providing budget, if we have ample amount of finance to buy commercialized tool, we can go for commercialized tool. But if we have a tight budget, we have to go on open source tools. Right test automation tool. So you have to carry out a POC and check. There should be certain categories like the budget, ease of learning, support for platforms, support for browsers. You have to evaluate at least 4 or 5 tools and select the best one. Select the scripting language. This also you had to think about the expertise people available, the support it has for third-party libraries. Select a good automation framework. So you had to cover the core elements of an automation framework which I have given in my articles: configurability, expandability, scalability, reportability, and viability. These I will be covering in the next coming up slides. Data-driven frameworks. The sole objective of here is to separate data from the scripting logic. You can use databases to import data. You can use Excel files, XML files, JSON files, Java property files, CSV files, and text files to make it more configurable. Then we come to keyword driven. These kind of frameworks they have keywords. Everything is just given in a grid format or an Excel sheet where there is no technicality available. The person who automates the test cases, he just simply have to type the keyword, the object that performs the functionality, and the value. So this is not highly encouraged because it is giving less technical capability for nowadays for a technical professional. So they have identified that a single framework doesn't solve the purpose. So there are hybrid which uses data driven and keyword driven. Nowadays frameworks are very much different. Automation framework is something like we put our common standards and practices. Automation frameworks connects with CI servers like Bamboo and Jenkins. Automation frameworks also has version control integrated GitHub and Bitbucket. And also automation test cases, the framework is integrated with test management tools like ALM, Jira, TestLink, Qtest, and also we can see dashboards where Jira is integrated with its REST APIs. You can see your test results published in Jira dashboards, and also you can see there are other third-party reporting components like Extend Report, Allure Report, ATU Report, which are also covered in my articles. And sometimes automation frameworks are integrated with crowd solutions like BrowserStack, Source Labs, Selenium Grid. It's going to be there, but I think it will be replaced by cloud-based solutions because it gives more functionality. There are more and more automation tools integrated with each other. You can see one whole framework which integrates Protractor, Appium, Selenium, Vimium. So you can see a global framework which is called the version 2 of automation frameworks. So what are the core components of automation framework? It should be configurable. You should not have your URLs, user credentials, anything hard coded in your automation framework. It should be configurable, read by a CSV file, Excel file, or a database, because you will be running your same automation scripts in multiple frameworks, multiple environments. It will be QA, dev, production QA, or production. So your framework should be configurable. Reportability is very much needed in a framework. You should have a good execution report which integrates with third-party execution reportability tools like Aloo reporting, ATU reporting, TestNG reporting, or even Extent reporting. So the report should give much more detail, where it should give, according to my view, a report should give the manual tester how to report a bug. Then we come to scalability. Your automation framework should be scalable into multi-level of projects which are available in the organization. So it should be applied. It can be applied to all of the projects with a minimum level of customizing. Then we come to extendability. Your framework should be extendable with any third-party libraries, any third-party tools. Like when we want to integrate dashboard, we should be able to integrate with Jira. If we want to integrate with reportability tools, we should be able to integrate with Aloo reporting. If we want to integrate mobility support for your Selenium framework, we should be able to integrate Appium. So the next part is reusability. You should not perform the same action in all the test cases. So login is a common action which should be reusable across the test cases. We should not reinvent the login scenario in all the test cases. Then if there is a small change, in the login scenario we had to change all the test cases, which is a time consuming and troublesome task. Then we come to the viability. Give frameworks which are viable to the organization. Don't just plug a framework from another organization and plug it here. You should be able to even customize that. So these are the core components when we try to design and develop a framework. Procedure to automate. So when we automate, we first have to automate the smoke test cases, which helps us to run whenever there is a deployment to ensure that core function works fine. Then we automate the happy path, regression scenarios, then the negative scenarios, and try to make these test cases do some due diligence task of integrating more than one test case to end-to-end scenarios, which will reduce the amount of automation scenarios that you have. Continuous integration is another important area that you all have to concentrate. Jenkins, Bamboo. So these are the tools which helps you to continuously integrate your automation suite. So in the continuous integration process, the developer punch in some code, and if it's good, okay, unit tests are passing, then what he does is he dumps into the main repository. So when he pushes his code to the main repository, a build will be getting triggered. Then there is a deployment, and this will create a trigger in the continuous integration server where the developers might execute their unit test cases. Then thereafter the automation should get integrated. So this supports agile continuous delivery. So you guys may have to learn how to integrate your automation framework with the continuous integration process. So finally, if you are going to be a great test automation professional, don't just stop with Selenium. Selenium is a tool to do only web UI automation. My advice is to learn other tools, learn other supporting technologies, learn development languages, learn the BDD languages available, SpecFlow, Cucumber, RSpec. So you have to learn this, Maven, a lot of things to learn. So start the walk now itself. You can go for the success. And do please remember, don't ever call frameworks which have Selenium integrated as Selenium frameworks. If you have developed the framework in Java, call it as Java Automation Framework. If you have developed in C#, call it as C# Automation Framework. Hope you guys learned a lot from this session. More and more sessions are going to come to the YouTube channel. Stay tuned. Thank you guys.